Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Nice to see you.
Likewise, likewise.
There's quite a lot of questions in people's minds about what's going on and what is going to happen with this virus, and in particular with our economy. And I thought interesting way to answer some of those questions for myself and for some of those people would be to have a conversation with you and get a sense of what you're thinking.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for opening this conversation. I think it's very important in these times to have as much information on these issues as one can get, and for the public to be as informed as possible.
One of the big issues that I have, and one of the things I'm thinking about, is how we should think about opening up the economy. Which are the parts you think of the economy that are critical to be opened up, and what's the sequence of opening up?
It's a great question, because I think as we turn from trying to bend the curve on infections and preventing hospitals and medical facilities from being overwhelmed, we have to start thinking about restarting people's livelihoods. It's all too easy to have a lockdown forever, but obviously that is unsustainable for the economy. So it has to be a sequencing. First, the places where you can maintain distancing, and it's not just distancing in the workplace, it's also distancing to and fro from the workplace, the transportation structure. Do people have private means of transport, their cycles or their scooters, or even cars? Or do they depend on public transport? And if it's public transport, how do you maintain distance in public transport? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, both on creating the structures, as well as ensuring at the workplace it is relatively safe, as well as ensuring if there are accidents, there are fresh cases, how do you isolate quickly without having to go to a second lockdown or a third lockdown? Those will be devastating if we have to go there.
That's what a lot of people say, that if you get into a cyclical lockdown, if you open up and then you're forced to shut down, and then you open up and you're forced to shut down again, then that is devastating for economic activity, because it would completely destroy trust. Would you agree with that?
I think that's right, because that would suggest, take even a second lockdown. It means that you haven't been completely successful in doing in reopening, and that raises questions of if you reopen again, will you go into a third lockdown? So it does diminish credibility. That said, I don't think we have to aim for 100% sort of success. That is, 0 cases when we open up. That's unachievable. What we have to do is manage the reopening so that when there are cases, we isolate them.
But at the heart of that management, knowing which areas are having heavy infections, which areas are not, at the heart of that process, of course, is testing. And there's a sense in India, and that the testing capability is in itself limited. That we're a big country, and that our ability to test, like the United States or like the European countries, is comparatively limited. So how would you think about it with a sort of low level of testing? I mean, would you?
It's a great question, because take the United States right now. It's ramped up to about 150,000 tests per day. But the consensus amongst experts, certainly the epidemiologists, is that to really be confident about opening up, you have to triple that to 500,000 tests a day at least. And some are talking of numbers in the millions. Well, just multiply by 4 to get 4.5 to get India's population. And you're talking about 2 million tests a day if you want to get the level of confidence that you have in the United States. And clearly, we are nowhere near that. I think we're somewhere around 25,000, 30,000 tests a day at this point. But we have to be cleverer about opening up, which means perhaps do mass testing. Take 1,000 samples, and then check in a mass way whether there is any sign of the virus in those 1,000 samples. And if you do find that, then go deeper into that particular sample and check who it might be. But this way, I mean, these are ways of testing which reduce the burden on the test infrastructure and can allow us to try and vet much more. It's in some sense less intensive, but it is cleverer. We have to be cleverer about the reopening because we simply can't wait till we have that kind of facility.